So I want to kind of move this a little bit quickly so that we can get on with the exciting part of the events. So what we're going to start out with tonight is a little overview of Hackathon 101. What is a hackathon? What are the events tonight going to be all about? So I guess first of all, show of hands or clap or something. How many of you have attended a hackathon before? Okay, so maybe a third or so. Any of you attended the Sinai Hackathon before? Same hands? Some other external, okay. I think we've got a couple of groups also from outside of Mount Sinai. Anybody here from RPI? Yeah! All right. City College, CCNY? No. How about Cooper Union? We're going to expect a few. Cool. Harvey Mudd? Guys? All right. Awesome. So we got a group coming all the way up from California. They came last year as well. Really happy to have them back. And anybody here from Sinai? All right. All right. So as far as running a hackathon, right? So this slide is just a kind. Stony Brook. SUNY Stony Brook? They're on the highway. So, as we know, the world is increasingly digital. This graphic kind of conveys how technology is impacting everything from how we travel, how we communicate with one another, how we purchase things, and increasingly technology is changing our lives in very fundamental ways, and it's changing healthcare as well, as you know. Not only in terms of sophisticated imaging technologies and robotic surgery and so forth, but various kinds of implants, and even how we practice medicine on a day-to-day basis in terms of electronic medical records, and how we monitor our own health and human performance in terms of wearables and different apps. And so, success in developing these things requires a close collaboration between people working in healthcare and people working in technology. And to be able to create successful kinds of health technology. Often, people think about a traditional product development circle that starts early on in the process with just coming up with some ideas, and really is sort of an iterative process going all the way through concept development, prototyping, production. Sometimes there's IP involved, regulations, and so forth. And what we're trying to do here at Sinai is disrupt this at the very earliest stages of this development process, and focus on making sure the technical people understand what the clinical people need, and conversely that the clinical folks that are trying to solve the problems that they see every day have an appreciation for what technologists can offer. And this is really in the spirit of the whole larger cultural movement in terms of DIY, hackathons, the maker movement, et cetera. And so what I'd like to explain a little bit is what, so when we say the word hackathon, what are we talking about here? It's a combination between hacking, so like we're trying to disrupt a technology and not necessarily work on it in conventional ways, and marathon meaning just, a long event. And that's what you're in for. These next couple of days is a multi-day event where some people will be staying through the night to try to get their projects done. It's multiple days long. We're promoting these novel technology solutions, possibly involving apps, hardware, software. We'll explain some of the resources that we have available to you, and really encourages cross-disciplinary learning and teamwork. And this is exactly the kind of multidisciplinary team-based approach that's necessary to succeed with these kinds of innovation efforts. Hackathons, they first started around the turn of the century, and about a decade later they started being applied in the health space. And in the last few years they've really grown exponentially. This is a couple of years old now, but in 2017 we were already over 200 health hackathons during that year. So it really is increasing rapidly. And here at Mount Sinai, what we're defining as our Mount Sinai Health Hackathon. Our mission is to bring together students, trainees, faculty, and others from the New York City area, so it's not just internal to Mount Sinai, as you saw at the beginning, in a fun and high-energy setting to explore solutions for managing, monitoring, and treatment of urgent healthcare problems. We've in the past looked at pain and fatigue. We looked at cancer last year, and this is our third annual one. We're focusing on rare diseases in the spirit of the 50th anniversary of Mount Sinai. A number of the major innovations that have come over that time has been in the area of rare diseases. It's also part of a bigger enterprise to cultivate an ecosystem of multidisciplinary team-based health tech innovation here at Mount Sinai. And of course, having a good time doing it is an important component, and helps to keep people engaged and continue working on healthcare innovation even after the couple of days have gone by. Just one slide here on the idea of rare diseases being part of the problem. So it turns, when we talk about rare diseases, the formal definition is, or a legal definition, I guess, is like 1 in every 200,000 people. If it's fewer than 1 in 200,000, it's considered a rare disease. So in a city like New York, 8 million people, we're talking about 40 people or fewer with a particular disease. In some extremely rare cases, there might just be a handful of people around the world with some of these diseases. But that's not to say that that rare diseases don't occur often. And in fact, 1 out of 10 people is classified as having a rare disease. And it turns out that most of these happen to be children. And it's not because you grow out of the disease when you get older. It's because a lot of the diseases are terminal. And so and part of the problem is that most of these rare diseases don't have cures, don't have FDA-approved drugs to treat them. And so where does being involved in a hackathon come in? We're not going to cure these rare diseases in a weekend, right? So some areas to consider are that when you're thinking of the small numbers of people that suffer from these diseases, you might be interested in technologies that can help with issues to combat isolation, to get patients together. How do you get them access to the necessary experts where there might not be a lot of people who specialize in that disease? How do you raise awareness or organize fundraisers perhaps to help support that disease? Thinking of the children that are affected, maybe we can't extend their life, but how do you help a child and a family understand and cope with a rare disease, or can you help to maximize their quality of life? And in the perspective of creating more therapies, maybe ways to incentivize drug developers to invest in rare diseases, help to raise money for research, enroll people in clinical trials, maybe identify multiple diseases that have some commonality that could benefit from the same drug, and even simplify the FDA approval process. So I think those are some examples, and we'll hear some more from our clinical experts in a little bit, of how technology can influence a problem like this. So what do you need to be able to be successful in a hackathon like this? Of course, you need some people with technical skills, but you also need people with good ideas and creativity. And I'd say of the two, in the context of the hackathon, it's really important to make sure you have people that have good ideas, have insights, passion, collaborative, want to work in teams, can communicate with one another, and are willing to take risks. I mean, what do you have to lose, right? The chances are you're not going to come up with something great over the weekend, so give it a shot. And if you come up with a great idea, you never know. It could really be a big hit. It's the hackathon's responsibility to kind of get the right people together and make sure that there are programmers and hardware developers, designers, entrepreneurs, et cetera, that you can partner with while you're working on this, while you're working on these projects. And so when you registered, we asked you to list areas of expertise, and many people listed more than one area of expertise. So again, maybe just a show of hands, how many people would consider themselves clinical experts? Okay. How about bioinformatics, biomedical? Okay, cool. Software developers, great. look around, because these are people that you might want to be connecting with during the course of the weekend. Hardware developers. Awesome. Okay. How about user interface, user design stuff? Awesome. Okay, and then, so these are the people that are going to be on these multidisciplinary teams. You want to work and interact with one another. I'm probably missing a few also. Maybe we've got people from the business area, entrepreneurial area, a few as well. And then we'll also have some folks coming in that'll have a little star on their badge. They won't be parts of your team, but they're here to provide some advice and guidance during the course of the weekend to serve as mentors. And again, we have folks in the clinical area, as well as in the business entrepreneurial area. We have a group from Sinai Arts that's going to come and help if you are looking, come up with a logo for your company or something like that. There's a bunch of different resources. I think we have some folks from the graduate school as well that are here just to discuss what what directions things could go if you're interested in pursuing some of this stuff in graduate school. So it's a good mix, and we're looking forward to everybody really trying to have a very multidisciplinary approach to your projects. And as far as what can you expect to get out of this weekend, if you want to have sort of inspirational example, I think one is this company called PillPack. This guy TJ Parker, who in 2014 participated in a health hackathon that was run at MIT. He had an idea that is really confusing for patients to keep track of numbers of different medications and different different colored bottles and all kinds of weird stuff that is hard to remember if you took the pills in the morning or not. And so he thought if he could partner the pharmacies with a company that would pre-package and pre-sort these things, then actually just have sort of a little strip that you can pull out, and each day you take your little packet of pills, whatever the combination is, might be a good idea. Within a couple of years, they had 200 employees, and it raised over $50 million in seed funding. And if you pay attention to this stuff, just a couple of months ago, PillPack was acquired by Amazon for close to $1 billion. And so quite literally, an experience like this could change your life. And I'd say when you ask the question, what can you get out of it? I think it depends entirely on what you are willing to put into it. So if you work hard and believe in an idea, then I think the sky's the limit. Okay, so as far as the actual event this weekend, this gives a quick overview of the event flow. Today, we'll be focusing on the problem review, so we'll have some speakers to give you an idea of what the issues are with rare diseases. And then problem and solution pitching. Some of you have already been starting to brainstorm some ideas and post them on Trello. And so for the problem pitches, this is really an opportunity to say, this is what I think is an interesting problem to work on, not focusing on a solution, focusing on the problem. You might have a solution in mind, but keep the doors open for now, and not to skew other people's ideas of what a solution might be. They might come up with something interesting that you hadn't thought of. So first you pitch the problem, then we'll have dinner and think about stuff, and then you come back and pitch your solutions to the problem, and that's when the team formation begins. And by the end of the night, you'll be on teams and ready to start working for the weekend, which is what you'll be doing all day and all night Saturday. And then on Sunday, you'll be giving your presentations to a panel of judges, and we'll announce the winners at the end, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So again, for today's schedule, after I stop talking, we'll have some speakers from a clinical background. You can see the list here, and we'll go through them in a minute. All folks that are involved in different aspects of rare diseases. And then, like I said, Cynthia will say a few words from MSIP, talking about intellectual property. And then we have Ken Montgomery here as well from Persistent, one of our Persistent Systems, which is our premier sponsor. And he's going to say a few words as well about how why they're excited about being involved in a hackathon like this. And then the problem pitches. Problem pitches. This is, like I said, we'll be focusing on the problems that are listed on Trello. In fact, we'll we'll ask you to come up to the side and pick a number, and each team will come up, or each individual will come up and present their problem. And then pay attention to those numbers, because those are the guys you're going to want to go and track down later over dinner, and decide who you, if you've got an idea for a solution and want to partner with them. I'll go over this later when we actually get to the pitch section. But take a look at the end there. You have 60 seconds. This is a 1 minute, very quick. This is the problem that I'd like to solve. Then after brainstorming a bit, it's time to think about what kind of solutions, how you might want to address that problem, whether it's through different tracking devices or therapeutic apps and devices, decision-making tools, etc. And then team formation. Again, multidisciplinary, so you need more than one person, you need a few people on your team. Too many people can be cumbersome, but too few people doesn't give you that richness in terms of creativity and perspective. And so we typically are finding winning teams in the past are somewhere between 3 to 9 people per team. And by 11 o'clock tonight, you will have decided which team you're going to be joining. So during the dinner time on the bottom right there, you should be going around introducing yourself to folks. Don't be shy. Most people don't know each other, don't have teams already formed. If something sounded interesting to you, don't hesitate to go and introduce yourself and get involved. All day Saturday, we'll be building stuff, making prototypes. And I think in the program, all it mentions is the cafeteria is open, but there's other stuff going on as well. And so at 10 o'clock, we'll have some tech support sessions. Again, we'll have somebody from Persistent talking about how the health cloud computing can be used in some of these projects. We'll have someone from Sinai Biodesign talking about some of the hardware capabilities available. And someone from the App Lab will talk about if you're interested in developing apps. And then that at least gets you, these are, you choose which ones you want to attend, depending on what kind of solutions you have in mind and what's going to be the most useful to you in your product development. And then we'll also have, we had mentors last year that were kind of mingling around, and we got some feedback that sometimes it was a little bit disruptive to have somebody just come up and say, hey, I'm here to mentor you, I'm going to give you some advice. So it's important to be able to have access to that advice, but sometimes maybe on your terms. And so we've got two mentoring sessions on Saturday between 11 and 1, and between 2 and 5. Mentors will be at their tables. We have a list on Trello, I think, or on Slack. Where's Peter? Okay, so we'll be posting who the mentors are and what their expertise is, so you can target who you want to go talk to. And then we're also going to have a whiteboard there that's like a help wanted, right? And so if you've got a problem that you need help with, put it on the whiteboard, what your team number is, and then somebody with that expertise, when they come by, they'll know who to target to give advice to. So hopefully that'll work out. As this slide shows, this idea of what you're aiming for, it's not realistic to come up with, final designs in the course of a couple of days, but it's not unrealistic to come up with something that's a reasonable prototype that can convey what the nature of your solution is. In the case of PillPack, if it was just a strip of paper that could have literally been a roll of toilet paper, and each square of the toilet paper you convey is the pack of pills. As long as you can get that message across to the judges, that's the key thing. Is it an important problem, and do you have a great solution for an important problem? But beware that some people are, going to come up with more than a roll of toilet paper as their example, right? And so last year we had an instrumented teddy bear as one of the examples. We've had functional apps, or at least partially functional apps. So make the best effort you can. It's not unrealistic to actually get a design that you can demonstrate to the judges, and that obviously makes a big impression. And then Sunday, the final day, you still are finalizing your designs in the morning. Many people haven't done a pitch before. You have 3 minutes to do your pitch to the judges. It's pretty, the shorter the talk, sometimes the harder it is to give, because you have to get a lot of information in a little amount of time. And so we'll do a round of practice pitches in the morning at 11 o'clock. We have some judges that have volunteered to come in and give some feedback on those. And then the final pitches will be at 3 o'clock to another panel of judges that are representatives from academia, both clinical and sciences. We have folks from industry as well, including a VP of early clinical development in rare diseases from Regeneron, who himself suffers from a rare disease. We have other stakeholders, patient stakeholders, and folks that are involved in the biotech entrepreneurship space. So we think it's a good cross-section of people to evaluate the projects. Just for transparency, the judging requirements, if you go to the website and look under participant guidelines, we have the criteria listed there. And what you're competing for is 3 finalist positions. The 3 finalists will each win $2,500 and a chance to present their idea at this innovation showcase that happens to be on Valentine's Day in November 2019. And in addition to the 3 finalists, there's 1 open wildcard slot. So if you don't happen to be one of the finalists, but you still are excited about your idea, you think you have a great idea, you have a couple of months to continue working on it, and then we'll explain at that time how to compete for the wildcard slot. Okay. And so that's one example of how we don't want this effort to end. Like I said, if this is a culture, we're trying to get people to be excited about these ideas and continue pursuing them after the weekend. And so there's resources here at Sinai, both in terms of the Sinai Biodesign, Sinai App Lab, like I mentioned, Sinai Arts, one of the student-run organizations, Sinai Innovation Partners, our tech transfer office, which is the innovation showcase next year, not Innovation Shark Tank, but that's the only graphic I had for that. And of course, Persistent is continuing its great relationships here with Sinai and strengthening those, and is available as well if you decide to use those technologies in your solution. So in terms of what is a hackathon really like, I think I've tried to give you kind of the nuts and bolts a bit of what the experience will be like this weekend. In partnership with Persistent, we have this video here from last year's event, which I think is a nice, like, 2-minute overview, and then that's basically my last slide, so we can get things back on schedule here. So.
Well, the idea for the hackathon actually grew out of our Sinai Innovations Conference. As an institution, we're deeply committed to innovation, cultivating new areas of interest, creating new disciplines, synergizing talents of different types, and a health hackathon is a great way to do that.
It's one of the most unique experiences that you can have. Because on day 1, at night, you start with a room of 60 people, and you create some of the best ideas. On the same day, you come up with your initial solutions. On the next day, you actually solve those big problems that you've identified. And then at the end of the entire process, you get to pitch this to judges who are the experts in their field, and they actually tell you that your idea is worth something, it's going to make a difference in someone's life. I think that's one of the most unique experiences you can have.
What we have seen is this tremendous amount of energy that comes. The teams come and they compete with each other, and they only have 1 weekend to do. And there's a purpose behind it. So I think what we have learned is you have to have a theme. So people can learn about the theme, and then you can compare one product versus the other product. One team is seeing other team doing such fancy stuff that motivates them to be on the top.
I don't think I've ever had to work this hard.
It's been very challenging and a rigorous process.
And we ended up working on projects that we didn't even expect to work on.
But it's been very enlightening as well.
It's been awesome.
Some of these teams have, technologies and ideas that are really not that far away from implementation.
The past 48 hours was a whirlwind of excitement. It's all about the mission, all about impact on society.
The whole development that you see in IT, startups, a revolution that's taking place. You see in universities that they start with accelerators, innovators. You see that hackathons are part of that, sort of as an early incubating phase or early accelerator phase.
When you put really bright people together with different skills and you really challenge them with a really big problem, it's amazing how sparks fly. They get excited, they talk, they exchange ideas, they come at it with different angles. Together, they come up with solutions that I'm sure none of them individually could have ever dreamed of.
right, so that was last year. So, so thanks.